You're listening to RIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out RIARadio.com.
Anybody listening to this episode, this is kind of a PG-13 here, so if you have little kids in the car, put some earmuffs on. Thanks for listening.
This episode is brought to you by Timber Creek Virtual.
At Timber Creek Virtual, we don't just keep your business running, we take it to the next level. Our virtual and executive assistants handle all the everyday tasks so you can focus on what really matters, growing your business. Need clarity on your financial performance? Our expert bookkeeping services keep everything organized, so you always know where your business stands. With our seamless transaction coordination, you never have to worry about the details. Just close the deal. We've got you covered with cutting-edge digital marketing, proactive lead generation, and expert acquisition management. Plus, we handle the cold calling and messaging too. Let us handle the big C part so you can handle your business. Visit timbercreekvirtual.com/services and see how we can make your business soar.
Welcome to RIA Radio, episode 173, part 2 with Gabriel Ruiz.
I really want to get back into the contracting side of this because I feel like okay, so I have a project going on right now, and I have 2 projects going on right now. One is just getting done, but then my next project is a larger scale project. It's a 4-unit. I had a fire in 1 unit. I had a business partner that just kind of walked off the job, so I had a contracting business. So now I'm stuck with this to get this done and move forward. And in this particular job, my business partner is like, "Oh, I'll do this for cost. It's gonna be like $150,000." Now I'm getting quotes outside, and that number is now swelled up to $380,000 on the quotes that I'm getting. This is so above and beyond because up until this point, I've done major rehabs, and I did a 5-unit building, and the numbers were from people that I have worked with for years and give me the homie hookups, and the number 380,000 doesn't even comprehend in my head really well, and I'm like, what is that number?
Well, you have a few problems with that equation, right? Or what's in your head. One, these other projects or the numbers that you're comparing it to it's historical data, right? True. The problem with historical data is, have you seen what prices have done for everything?
Totally.
They've gone up.
Because right? I've done projects since, consistently over the last, 5 years.
So things go up. And in addition to that, you have another variable there. You had a fire. Yeah. Fire changes everything. And I don't want to speak too much about that because realistically, I'm not the pro. But what I do know is that it changes stuff in a big degree.
Okay, so I agree with that to a standpoint, but let me bring that back. The projects I've done have all been condemned.
Okay.
So this project's condemned and the other ones were. And I look at this one as more of an empty slate because, yes, it had a fire, but a company came in and gutted it all the way down to studs, where the projects that I've worked on before were not studs, and I had to take them down to studs. So I feel like that the big chunk of the work has already been done, and I have an empty canvas, and I should be a little bit easier. And every project I've worked with, I've had to get my electrical permit, my plumbing permit. So I get that, and I'm not scared of that. The number just does not resonate in my head that it makes sense. So, hence why I want to bring you out there and get your viewpoint on it.
Sure.
I have a trusted company that has already given me their opinion once, and and I'm not bashing on them in any sort of way. I know they do good work, but it's just really hard to stomach when you have a business partner that has a construction company. He's he gives you a number, and it's the reason you buy the project. And some people, I'm sure, have dealt with this at some point in their lives, and if they've been investing. Some people, not everybody. Everybody does does this, but this particular project, I owe. At the point, probably $240,000 on this loan. And after it's rehabbed, if I don't add extra units, it's probably worth about $500. If I update and add the extra bedrooms and the unfinished spaces, it's probably worth about $600. And I'm just trying to stomach what it's going to take to do this, and if it's even worth to do it. I'm on the fence. I actually called Owen. I'm like, dude, can you give me some advice on this place? Mm-hmm. and I'm gonna throw it online just on MLS and just see if it sells.
Sure.
As is, and just take my losses.
Explore the options for sure, because the other thing that you have with that is, or at least for myself, and I've never seen it, so a lot of speculation here, but makes you wonder, okay, so if previous partner gave you a number and now walked away, that makes me think, especially hearing that you got another number that is way higher. And I understand that was cost.
Yep.
I don't mark up my stuff that much, and most of the contractors that I know don't mark up their stuff that much either. Like, yes, we need to put food on the table, but we're not trying to make a mint on every deal, because otherwise that's just not reality. That's not life. That makes me think your ex-partner maybe walked away because they realized, holy crap, I bid this way too low.
He walked away because of personal shit, not because of this project.
I'm sure that may be the case, but that still is going to make me think maybe that's part of the reason why he's like, I'm not going to take on. Because if you're getting a number that's more than double, to me, if he revisited it, not knowing you, say Johnny Appleseed buys the property and then he revisits it and he's like, oh, this is a $300,000 project. Maybe cost on his is 2 and change, not 150. Maybe he just underbid the crap out of it. I don't know. I'm speculating to the nth degree because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And with that, a lot of times as a contractor, even though it's to the studs, I still don't know what I don't know until we start.
Yeah.
And you know, I know quite a bit as an investor myself and being a remodeling contractor, but I don't know everything. So like my plumber may get in there and see stuff that I didn't see. My electrician, even my own guys may see stuff that, whoops, I didn't see that either. So when I bid stuff, I hate using that term bid, but when I estimate what a project is and I put together a proposal for a retail client, there is a degree of guessing in that. And with that, we put a percentage in there of budgetary numbers because I don't know what I don't know until we start. So I understand from your perspective, because I look at it for myself too. I flip properties as well. So even sometimes my guys will look at stuff and I have a number in my head and then they come up with what they think it's going to be. I'm like, what? They see things from a different angle. So it's interesting. And I get where you're coming from because I've been there.
Yeah.
You don't know until you start sometimes.
Now, as a contractor, do you find it more complicated? Like in my situation, you know, I run the local RIA, so I have some really good connections. I have really good plumbers. I have really good electricians. I have really good HVAC people that give me special pricing. Let's say I'm working with you and I'm like, hey, I would really like to use my people in these services. Are you like, no way, that's too complicated? Or are you open to those allowing that?
It does complicate things. So it depends on
how's that conversation go with with a general person.
So if I'm having a conversation with a true end user, like Pat and Sue live in the house, they want to redo their kitchen. No, I want to use all my own people because then I can control it more to everything from scheduling the whole line. And not to say that it's still not perfect.
What if I don't want to run it and I'm like, hey, these are the people I want to use. You can. My historical data says that does not go well. Really?
Because this is a one-off project for Pat the plumber and Peter the electrician. They don't give a rip about who I am because in their minds, oh, we're never going to work with these guys again. They have their people. And then they want to point the finger at me, and then it just wants it doesn't end well. I don't like it. I avoid those situations like the plague.
This is a great conversation, by the way.
It is, because
great conversation.
It totally shifted gears from all the celery from earlier.
No, for real. Like this is nothing we've ever talked about before.
It's tough, and like I'm a yes person to my own fault. Like I want to help people, and I really do. We support a lot of nonprofits because I just believe in doing whatever you can for people that can't for themselves or don't know, and blah blah blah. So I always want to say yes, but every time I do for Pat and Sue in their house, it bites me in the butt. Like even people that I know really well. For example, we built a studio, a salon back in 21. Good friend of mine. Plumbing budget from my guys, we estimated about $20,000 for this build out. He had his plumber come in 10. I'm like, bro, I'm not going to say his name, but friend, I'm seeing 20, 25, 30. I'm giving you the lowest of the three. And usually I don't shop the numbers. I just use data. But this particular project, there were a lot of anomalies. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I need eyes on this one. Tell me what you think. So again, his number came in at 10. I'm like, well, I mean, I understand if I were you, I'd want to go with the 10,000 too, but I can't control them. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't control anybody but yourself. But as a GC, you want to try to think to some degree, like, these are my people. I give them a lot of business. We work together. Like, we've got some harmony. every project has something that goes wrong. I don't care what it is. Sometimes it's minute, sometimes it's massive. It's how you overcome those projects from a GC perspective. And I'm saying that for all the investors that are listening, like that's the reality of a remodeling project or any project. Like things are going to go wrong. But anywho, long story short, he uses his plumber, which crap, if I were him, I would too, for a third of the price.
Yeah.
Delayed the project by 3 weeks, and he had a hard stop on when we needed to open the salon. We missed it by 3 weeks. And at the end of the day, it was all his plumber. And he came in to me at one point. And he's like, well, this went wrong. This went wrong. This went wrong. I'm like, no. None of that stuff really went wrong. It was your plumbers that were supposed to be there and then didn't show up for 2 weeks in this window and didn't show up here and then did this wrong. And then they had to go back and fix this. And they're not listening to me because they're not my guys. They're your guy. And then behind the scenes, they're bitching at me saying they bid it too low. I'm like, no crap, you bid it too low. And they wanted to change order him. Luckily, he's like a firm guy, and he had something in writing showing, no, this is what you told me. I'm not paying you a penny over 10 grand.
Yeah.
But that also didn't expedite the process because at that point they knew they underbid it, and it was very much last on their list of projects to finish because they bid it.
Yeah, so low. It was a nothing. By the time they got done with it, it
They
was like
lost money.
Yeah.
Because that actually leads into
This is a great conversation.
because that leads into like I just did like a $200,000 renovation on an Airbnb that I have active right now, and the contractor I was working with is like, nope, this is my electrician. There's no way around it. And I have an electrician that has done multiple projects for me to date. And he's like, he came in and he's like, how much did you pay for this? I'm like, it was $22,000 some dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is a $9,000 after it's done.
Yeah.
He goes, this was a $9,000 project for me. He goes, it's like, I think that you way overpaid on this. And I don't know where that number came from. It came from the GC, not directly from the electrician.
So there's going to be a little bit of markup in there for sure. GC's going to mark it up. But at the same time, it's really easy to say after the fact, hey, this is what this project is. When you're not,
but there's
in there,
risk involved, right?
There's risk in there. And
what if he was wrong and then got into it and it ended up being a $25,000 project?
And at the same time, he also doesn't know everything that went into what actually went in behind the wall. You can't see behind the wall. You don't know what curveballs they got thrown at them that they had to change this and change that. And I'm speaking extremely broad because that's the reality of every project. You just don't know.
And that's the challenge too of remodels versus new build or almost new build is because you have to open up walls and like you don't know what kind of Mickey Mouse activities have gone behind with the mechanicals. But I had this
and change orders.
Yeah, change orders.
Actually, I don't want it this way. Well, it's already mapped to do this. No, I wanted to do that, or there was a misunderstanding, and unfortunately, we pay for that. And I pay for that myself. Like, I changed something on a project we're doing myself for my own guys. I'm like, I want to frame this out. I'm going to pay for that because they were partially done. Materials were bought. Materials were used. They were cut. Like, it happens.
Yeah, and this goes to show.
Sorry for interrupting.
No. This highlights the difference between a pro and someone that's more of a handyman that's put into a role where they're forced to be a GC.
But I am a licensed contractor, right? And I own properties, and I'm not perfect. I'm human. I also change my mind. Like the vision changes as the project goes on. Actually, guys, or my guys will say to me, hey, how about we do it this way? I didn't see it that way. So like things are going to change, man. It's just part of remodeling.
Yeah. My biggest fail in the last 2 years has 100% been involved with my contractors. I mean, it's a project where somebody went through, one project where I had a contractor and he went through a divorce.
I have a car in the same way. I haven't seen it in 3 years.
The 60-day project, went a year and a half and he ran off with money. And then I had to bring other people in. Or another project, like the Airbnb, it was supposed to be a $75,000 project. In the end, it went from a 3 to 6 month project to a year and a half project. And the holding costs and everything ballooned to $200,000.
Of course.
And then I have this, duplex.
I think you need a new lender.
And the duplex was supposed to be like a 45-day project. And then it went. I mean, we're still not done today. And it was supposed to have been done June of last year. I'm sorry, August of last year. From a 45-day project, went from 35,000.
And this airs January 1st of 25.
Yeah,
and so you're talking about June of 23.
It'll be and then I have this project I want you to look at. And the contractor bailed on me, and everything I've done that's been a fail. Like everything I've found, everything I budgeted correctly, I've prepared myself correctly, I've ran my performance correctly. And in the end, my fail 100% has gone on contractors and timeframes.
So that tells me a couple things.
I know where my f ups are, but so I want to hear it though, because I need to hear it.
I can pile on here too when you're done, Gabe.
My perception, of course, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know all the details.
I'm done with these projects, by the way.
To me, that makes it sound like 1, you bought too many. 2, you put too many in one contractor's hands. And again, this is my perception. I don't know all the facts. Maybe you had 4 contractors for the 4 projects or 3 projects, whatever it was. I don't know. But high level over, you bought too many too soon and you put too many on one contractor. Listen, I want all the jobs. I can't take all the jobs. There's plenty of room in this town for fiber new. There's plenty of room in this town for primetime general contracting. That's the reality of it. There's a lot of work for all of us. We have to all play well in the sandbox together, be honest, try to do what we can. It is what it is.
It's timeframes. It's also chasing the buck. And I think that in the end, I continuously am chasing the best dollar. But when in the end, the best dollar does not give you the best return, because you're trying to get the cheapest, but in the end, the cheapest they're not sticking to their timeframes, they're not sticking to their budgets, and in the end, guys, you're going to pay more. And I'm going to give you the one example. I have this house in Omaha on 24th Street, and this is the one where the contractor went through divorce and so on. And that was supposed to be a really simple deal, but the contractor flaked on me. In the end, I had to bring other people in, and I had to sell 2 properties just to pay the bills on that project. And it was supposed to be a $35,000 renovation, and I think we ended up at $120 in the end.
Oof.
And a lot of that was because of inspections. When my contractor took off, I was unaware that things were never getting inspection. It never got called in inspection. So in the end, I thought things were already done, but that were not done. With the inspector, and beside, and then the inspector showed up, and I mentioned this in detail in other podcasts, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to teach you guys a lesson." So like my set of stairs in the back, I think ended up costing us, whether it was like 35 or 40,000 for a set of stairs on the back, because he wanted to do deck code and made us tear it down 5 or 6 times, and because his exact words, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And so if you chase the dollar, it's going to cost you more in the end. And I've learned that lesson 3 times in the last 2 years. Pretty much after the projects I have on my plate, I'm done with full remodels. I'm just, I've had great success with them, but I've also had huge failures, and I'm burnt out, and I'm going to simpler and better things.
Well, maybe I want to hear Owen's thoughts for sure.
Oh, he's got plenty of thoughts. I know it is.
But maybe just do one at a time. I say that to say, like, don't give up wholeheartedly. Just slow it down. Rome wasn't built in a day.
These projects were so spaced out that they were never supposed to overlap.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Again, and I don't know all the facts.
Yeah,
It's just my perception on.
All right, I'm not going to pile on, Ted, because I know I get it. We've talked about this multiple times.
Yeah, we beat it dead.
But
Sorry.
I know I
That's why I brought it up.
So there's a cost to loyalty, also.
Yeah.
In that you have
in every relationship,
and I'm guilty of this multiple times over. The pain of switching or going with somebody else, or just being like, I like him, I'm okay with the shortcomings and whatever, I'm going to continue working with them and so forth at my own detriment. I've done this so many times, and I'm still doing it. Like, I'm literally in the middle of something that I'm really frustrated with, and I just haven't ripped off the Band-Aid, where you give a contractor too much. And they're like, yes, I can handle that. Absolutely. I got 2 crews of guys, and like, they're ready to go, and we can jump on this next week. And this is a conversation that I have all the time, right? So you're an investor and you're a contractor, right? You Gabe. So you've worn both hats all the time. And I'll buy a property, and maybe I'll have a move out, and I'll be like, this needs a full, like, I have to go through everything here because it's been occupied for 15 years. Everything's outdated. You have to do a full cosmetic rehab, all new appliances, et cetera, countertops, et cetera. And then I'll use a guy that I've used multiple times, and they do good work. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to wrap this up. It's going to be done in 3 weeks. and then it's the Money Pit scenario, right? You watch the movie Money Pit. If you haven't seen that, for you millennials and Aiden Bears out there,
if you're a new real estate investor, watch that before you buy your first
He's
property.
just shaking his
Yeah, I
head
know.
right now. He's like, I'm so insulted.
I just wanted to make sure he's still engaged. He's out where they're playing Galaga. So
He doesn't even know what Galaga is.
when
It's Roblox. He's young.
Roblox. It's a Roblox. Oh, that's
He's
hilarious.
shaking his head too. He's like, I'm not that young.
There's a reason he hasn't turned his mic on yet.
But I literally am in the middle of that right now, where we gave one contractor 4 different rehabs. Well, I shouldn't say we in quotes gave him 2, and then I gave him 2. And I'm 7 months on a cosmetic remodel. We're talking flooring, paint, like some plumbing, some electrical, but this isn't a gut situation. This is like a $25,000-$30,000 remodel. I mean, Gabe, let me ask you this. If I gave you a cosmetic remodel on a house, right? It's a split entry. We're talking 1,000 on the main, 500 in the basement, 600 in the basement, whatever, right? So a 3-bed, 2-bath cosmetic remodel. You're going to go in, you're going to do flooring, paint, fixtures, maybe you put in some appliances, maybe pop the countertop, maybe you do shaker doors instead of whatever was there
A rental turn.
ago. Yeah. Let's say you're going to do a $20,000 remodel or $25,000 remodel. If you have nothing else at all on your schedule and you have guys that are ready to work, how long should that take you as a general contractor?
So I don't do what do you call it? Throwing shaker doors on existing cabinets.
Okay.
One. So I'm not your guy.
All right.
that-
Fair enough.
for that.
Fair enough.
But I would say, I mean, I would want to get it done obviously as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I would give you worst case scenario of like 6 weeks based on what you're describing. It sounds like paint, flooring, carpet.
Okay.
Paint, maybe some LVT in some rooms, carpet in other rooms. And then, so yeah, paint, flooring, maybe counters. I would say 6 weeks. I'd hope to get it done in 3.
Yeah, I mean, because my mind goes to like
Back to
if you have-
overpromising.
If you have dudes that are ready to work,
My
or like
flooring
gals-
guys would bang that shit out in 2 days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I've seen guys that don't have any other shit going on, and they can rock out
So
a house in
I
10
learned,
days.
I
You know
learned,
what I mean?
I learned really early on to separate it. So like I have a crew that can do all of that.
Yeah.
He's not going to show up at 9 o'clock like I tell him
Yep.
to, right? He's going to show up at 11. So I take the flooring out of it. I'm like, no. I want you to paint the cabinets. I want you to paint the house, and let someone else do the flooring. Let someone else do the counters, right? And then we can probably do it in 3 weeks. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you 6.
Okay, so we'll call it. Let's okay, but I'm talking like what you could actually do if
Yeah.
you were fully capable. If you had guys available.
If we're firing on all cylinders, 3 weeks.
okay,
So I tested my contractor out on this situation. I'm like, hey, here's a flip. It was a West Omaha flip. It was pretty easy. I used you guys on this one. It was last year, or 2 years ago maybe. And I'm like, it's a quick little flip, and he's like, yep, I can have that done in about 20 days. And
Business days or days?
days.
So I put business in mind just to give me a little bit more time.
He got it done in 6
Life
days.
hack.
Plus it sounds
he got it
cooler.
done. He got it done in 6 days. And I'm like, and it was like wood floor refinish, wood floor coloring, redoing all the cabinets, rebuilding a deck, fixing some siding, all new hardware, all new fixtures, countertops, and I was amazed. I'm like, done. This is my guy.
Yeah.
He brought in 20 some dudes to get this
That's
done.
a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
listen, this is why, and not to get off track here, but this is why I think it's so important for everybody that gets into this business to actually do some of this shit themselves or self-manage it.
Dude,
the process.
HGTV has ruined life.
Like, you can get an understanding when you go out into a job site and you can say, okay, let's say I have to replace all of the light fixtures. How long will that actually take one person to do? And you could actually do all of it in one day yourself.
I can do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
do that
it's,
at my own
it's
houses,
not a
yeah.
problem, right? Light fixtures are pretty easy peasy. If the wiring's run, you're just replacing something. It's not a weird fit. You don't have to cut drywall.
Well, it's one of those things like you do the
Like-
first one, it's going to take you an
Yes,
hour and a half.
that-
The
yeah,
second
you're
one's going to be
exactly
45
right.
minutes.
Yes, and then you're going to get more and more efficient after time. But that's why it's like I don't know, man. I get so frustrated with contractors, and you excluded. We haven't worked together, but
No, contractors suck. It's fine.
Yeah,
I have troubles
it's-
with my own guys. It's life.
like, and I have a guy that I've worked with for 20 years, literally 20 years, ever since I started investing. I'm not going to name names. I don't know if he listens to this. I'm assuming no.
He doesn't have
But-
the internet.
Yeah,
You paid him too little.
but no, it's like, I'm like, bro, like this is literally a $30,000 job, and it's not like I'm asking you to paint the freaking Sistine Chapel here. Like, it's paint, flooring, fixtures, like put in new cabinets. Like, that's not rocket science. Like, this shit should be done in a month, right? I mean, literally,
Which
it
is
should be.
why-
I mean, like, and I've seen guys that
weeks.
don't.
That's why I said I
Yeah.
want to get it done in 3 because my countertop guy may not show up exactly what I want, so on and so forth.
So what?
But I'll say 6.
So, Gabe, what happens after you and I walk through a place? I'm just saying,
Mhm.
not you in particular, but what happens with contractors
I feel so attacked. I need hot cocoa with marshmallows.
when an investor walks through and they're like, "Hey, here's everything I want done," and they're like, "Yeah, cool. I have guys available right now. We can jump on it. It should take 3-4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is." What happens after the time you give them a deposit check and say, "I'm in, you're hired, start, bring your guys over"? Why does it fucking take so long for them to finish? Do they just get other jobs and other bids that come in and they're like layering them on top of yours, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have to go over here because drywall's the mud is drying, or we couldn't do anything over there because they just painted and we don't, or they finished the floors." Like, I get that stuff all the time, and I'm like, you didn't know that after all this time
yeah,
that we've talked? Like, you didn't know that was going to happen? Are you kidding me? So what?
This is a counseling
I'm
session
sorry,
also.
yes,
sure.
Yes, yeah.
so part of that is accurate. Everything you just said. Part of that is also like Johnny is now, "Oh, well, while you guys are here, can you do this? Hey, can you do that?" And now it actually they perceive it as, "Oh, it's only an extra 10 minutes." Well, no, you're interrupting the flow of how things progress. And yes, there is dry time, right? And a lot of guys will take the dry time to their advantage and take on 2 projects that are the same project, right? Like, I'm gonna do a make ready here, I'm gonna do a make ready there, and I'm gonna do back and forth, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna get 2 projects done in 6 weeks, and the guys get messed up, right? Like, the details get wrong, and something happens here, something happens there. Homeowner A, homeowner B want to add stuff, and then it just screws up the timeline. Like, it's just logistics of things. If someone gives me I want this, and they don't change it, in theory, it should go well.
Yep.
Without any hiccups. But it's remodeling. Things happen.
So it's all about the prep, right? The more prepared you are as the investor for the contractor to come to you and do the work, the more prepared you are for them to actually start, the smoother it's going to go, right?
Yeah,
so if you're like,
and if you
"Yeah,
want,
I don't know, like maybe you should do that, I'll get back to you on it," or like, "I haven't decided what color I want, I'll get back to you on
give me the
it."
actual list.
Yeah.
Give me the actual colors. If you want to change light fixtures, don't order those. "Oh, we're 3 weeks in, and
Yeah.
they're just getting here now," and then you wonder why there's a delay.
Or, "Oh shit, I forgot about appliances," and now
Yeah.
I'm listing all my own faults here.
No,
so.
it's all good. But the light fixture thing is a huge deal, and people don't realize that because, okay, now the light fixture is smaller than the old ones. Now we have to touch up the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because we painted around the light
And
fixture.
it's textured weird.
Yes.
And then you have to like,
all these
they have
little things that just add all
Or
this
they didn't
time.
connect the shower up top and it's leaking now and you got to redo the ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah,
that stuff
or
happens.
halfway through they realize they have a roof leak and they're like, "Oh crap, we didn't know that." Now we have to
Can
fix
you guys do roofs?
Yeah. Hey,
Like
can
that.
you do this? Hey, can you do that? Yeah, it is what it is. Like,
Okay.
you have all these anomalies that people don't understand. Like, "Oh, that should be done in 2 hours." Well, that's because you watch too much HGTV. Get off Pinterest. Like, yes, that's great for inspirational, but that's not reality. That's not life. It doesn't take 4 minutes.
Okay. I feel a little bit better now, although not fully better because he should have known better. But yeah, it's hard because like sometimes you go over, and here's another frustration. I'm sorry, this is an Owen show.
You have a lot of yes people in your life too, where they want to help, they want to help,
Yeah.
they want to help,
Yeah,
and they overpromise.
but here's my
I can't say I've never done that.
here's my fault, and like here's something that I love and hate at the same time. I love being able to walk through a place with a contractor without a written out scope of work, a detailed thing that says, here's everything electrical, here's everything plumbing, here's everything paint, here, all that. Where I can just say, hey, here's what I want to do here. I point out all the things. make this look like this, replace this with granite, do all these things. I love being able to do that. But what always ends up happening is I miss something or two somethings or three or four, so there's that always happens. And then the other thing that happens is they missed something that I was talking about. And this is life, right?
We're human.
Yes, exactly. So you get 6 weeks away from a conversation that you had, and you're not going to remember. Like, you're not going to remember what I said. Like,
I'm gonna interrupt you, because what happens in not just even in I guess investors, it happens too, but happens with retail work all the time. People have a conversation with Owen, they have a conversation with Ted, they have a conversation with Gabriel. Well, now what happened is that the conversation is not the same with all three of us, right? I'm pretending we're all contractors in this.
Or it didn't even happen with you. It happened with two other people, and they assumed they had told you as well.
The target moved, right? And then they look at the number like, well, Gabriel, why is your number 10% more? Well, did you talk about this, this, and this? I gave you ideas. I know that Ted didn't talk about this because you met with Ted first. It was my idea. Yeah, that my idea costs more, but it's going to look freaking badass. Like, that's what you need to do if you want X from your property. You told me these were your pain points. I'm addressing your pain points. Did you tell Ted that pain point? I guarantee you fucking didn't, right? So I get frustrated as a contractor, and this is where I put my contractor hat on now, where they were looking at, well, your bid is 10% more, and it's going to be longer. No shit, it's going to be longer because my scope is not the same as Ted's. It's not the same as Owen's.
He's going to say Fred.
That's or Bears, right? Freaking Bear over there, troublemaker. But the reality of it is when the investors or property owners are shopping numbers, stop shopping numbers. All you're doing is making it more expensive for everybody, because I don't charge for my proposals, and I probably should. That's my problem. But because it's free and your proposal's free and your proposal's free, we're not freaking Oprah. Like, doesn't it? You get a free proposal. It gets built in somewhere. So stop. Like, some people want 8 proposals.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay, we can beat this to dead.
Yeah, sorry.
But the next section I want to go to with this is, how do you guys handle payments? So the contractors I work with, I'm like, hey, I understand there's an upfront payment. And then I like to have like, hey, when we reach this point, cabinets are hung, we're starting to do flooring.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So what point, how do you handle payments on your projects?
So I like to do a third, and a third. And what I mean by that is a third up front that commits you to me and me to you. And then a third when we start. And that's not a hard thing. It's in writing, right? And then the balance is due upon completion. And really, the way my contract as a contractor states, weird how they do that, right? Contractor and contract. Mm-hmm. It essentially states that like a third, and balance due, because the final number may change because the target usually changes. The goal changes. The scope changes. Maybe I uncover something that's more or maybe less. Again, as we went back to the earlier conversation of sometimes we pad the number a little bit because I don't know what I don't know. Well, the final number may be less. So the final invoice isn't a third. It may be, maybe more, maybe less.
I feel like that's an important thing. Some people get so much money up front, and then those contractors just run off.
Yeah. Anyone that's asking for half up front, that's ridiculous. I mean, if I have to special order materials, that's, that changes to some degree. And like, I'll ask for that. Some of my vendors, depending on what the project is, you can buy them directly. Use your credit card, get your points, get your cash back, go to Ibiza or wherever you want to go on vacation and take those vacations. We talked about that earlier on the vacation episode or section of the podcast today.
Well, the other aspect is, a lot of people get construction loans if they're not getting a hard money loan. And with those construction loans, they have to pay back what is being handed out. And sometimes, when you work with the banks, they want to see the receipt. So, hey, here's the Windows receipt. Okay, we're going to wire 80% of that back into your account off of your line of credit. So I think it's always kind of important to have a good pay structure, figure out what the expectations are up front, and that your bank will also accommodate that.
Yeah, I kind of asked about payments. So we take EBT, smiles, cries, hugs. Just kidding. No, it's cash, which is like 0%. I actually don't want cash. I want checks. And then we offer in-house or we offer financing, and with that financing, you can kind of plug it based on that structure I mentioned earlier. And those are the ways for me: check, financing, and whether that's your financing or ours.
Cool. Hey, well, I really appreciate all the content that you've given us on the contracting. I think a lot of us, it's at least it's my biggest struggle in my business, and
Sure.
I'm sure I'm not the only one from Owen venting the way he did. Before we get into our failing forward, though, you are wearing a shirt called 50 Mile March,
Yes.
and it's something that is near and dear to you. Can you tell us like a quick little rundown of what 50 Mile March is, and the reason that you do it?
So 50 Mile March is a foundation, and it supports veterans in our local community. Kind of go back to what I said earlier about Fiber New, what it is not. A lot of times people ask me, well, they hear the name, so they think like, okay, 50 miles. So Gabriel's going to walk 5, and I hand a baton to Owen, and Owen walks 5. And then, no, I'm going to raise the funds for the foundation. I march 50 miles overnight. It's a 22-hour journey. So I did this in 2023 with a friend of ours, Blake Martin. I wanted to do it in 22. It sounded awesome, and I just never made the commitment, never made it happen. In 23, I did. During that process, I trained with my daughter, who I knew was going to ask if she was going to perform in the actual 50. She was 7 years old at that time. Wow. 7 years old. I'm going to talk.
I love that, by the way.
I'm going to talk slower now. So my apologies. 7 years old. I knew she was going to ask, so I asked the founder at the time, what's the age limit on this thing? And he gives me the oldest and starts going ranting. And the one of the co-founders, he talks more than I do, and I'm not shy. I say that very openly to him as well. So it's not me talking smack. He started telling me about the oldest, and I'm like, no. What's the youngest? He started telling me the story about the youngest guy. I think it was like 15 years old. He stops midway because he realizes, like, I asked this for a reason. So he's like, well, why do you ask? I said, well, hear me out. I've got my 7-year-old daughter who wants to do this. So he says to me, all due respect, she's 7 years old. We have adults that have tried and have not showed up day of, like they can't do it. Right. This is work. It's 50 miles overnight, 22-hour endeavor. And again, I'm saying this slower on purpose. So hopefully it resonates with people because there's a lot of misconception on what this is. Anywho, he said, I don't have an answer for you. I got to go to the board. No one's ever asked if a 7-year-old can do this. And with that, he asked me if I thought she could do it. And I said to him, there are days where I've gone to the gym, I've worked all day, I get home, I'm tired. The last thing I want to do is train because it's a commitment. Earlier, you asked me about how I lost weight. Part of that's through this training. And I have no intention I don't want to walk 5 miles at 5 o'clock at night. I've worked all day. Like, I want to just chill. Yeah. Or maybe catch up on some stuff on the computer. Anywho, she comes down with her backpack and she's ready to go. Dad, you said we're going to walk 5 miles tonight. What are you doing? Let's go. So I tell him that. And I said, Jay, she keeps me in check. She is my accountability.
My son would be that person.
We should put our kids together. They will make the greatness will happen from our kids. And that's what all of this is about is our youth. But anywho, so he's like, I don't have an answer. When we go to the board, goes to the board. They don't really have an answer. It's like, I don't know, get a doctor's note. I don't know. She missed the qualifier, whatever else. 23, I did it by myself. My wife was like, F no, I don't want you doing it. We're not having our daughter do it. 24 comes around, or the end of 23 comes around. Christmas is here. She gets a bunch of Christmas presents. She's excited. She has this one gray box from Menards. She rips it open. It's a rucksack, like a water bladder. She lights up from ear to ear, and she's like, Dad, I may get emotional, so I apologize now. She's like, Dad, does that mean I'm going to do the 50 with you in 24? And now my wife is looking at me like, F you, I told you I don't want her to do this. Out of all the presents she got, she's 7 years old. Or at this point, she's 8. I'm sorry. Her birthday's in November. She's 8 years old. She's more excited about a water thing you put on your back than all the toys she got because she wants to walk 50 flipping miles with her dad. Like, it doesn't get better than that, people, in life. It just doesn't. So anyway, fast forward. We go through the process. She's training with me. I'm pushing her really hard. Her mom is still a skeptic. She's like, no, she's 8 years old. Like, she's a little kid. She can't walk 50 miles. So we're pushing, as I said earlier, 3 times a week, 5 miles each training session. Sorry if this is not tracking and following. So earlier this year, I'm like, I got to push her harder so she realizes this is not easy. Like, my journey was rough. There was one point in 23, and I know I'm bouncing all over the place, and this is not quick. I'm sorry. But in 23, there was a point in the middle of the night where I'm questioning all sorts of things. We've stopped a few times at this point. My legs are super heavy. That like they just hurt. What I've learned at this point, because we've stopped a few times, is if I can get to the next stop, I'll be good. It's just enough to reset the battery, so to speak, right? And I don't know, 3 a.m, whatever.
How many stops do you make?
We make 6 stops in total. 22-hour journey, about 6 stops. An hour and a half sounds like a long time. It's not, because we have to change our clothes, fill our water bladder, change socks,
Powders so you don't get butt chafe.
Chafe everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
I put Glide butter on all the nooks and crannies, the nipples, the Under Armour, like between the stuff and the stepchildren and everything. Otherwise, you get chafage in places you don't want chafage.
Yeah.
That hurts. So, anywho, I've learned at this point that if I can get to the next stop, I'm good. I'm Gucci, as the cool kid said, like probably 10 years ago. So I'm talking to my dad in my head. Again, lost my father a few years ago. He served in the Army. He's my why. He's why I wanted to get in the 50-mile march. I couldn't serve because I had asthma. As a kid, it was a dream of mine. 14 recruiters like, oh, great. Sign up. Blah, 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 blah. You have asthma. I'm thinking, this is a good thing. Yeah, I have asthma. He's like, sorry, the conversation's over. You can't serve. Anywho, fast forward. So I do this because I couldn't serve my country in a different way. So I try to pay it forward to our veterans. So anyway, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. My legs are killing me. I'm talking to my dad in my head. I'm like, hey, give me the strength, give us the strength to get to the next stop. Because if I get there, I know I can finish this for us. I don't know what you guys believe in. I know this is not a spiritual podcast by any means.
It is pretty spiritual. We're deep here.
I had that moment right there. All of my pain dissipated. I looked back at Blake at one point. He's like, Gabriel, you're not quiet and you're not talking. You got to talk, bro. Talk to me. This is going to be really long if you're not talking. He was my man the whole time in 23. All the pain dissipated, and I made it, and I finished. So anyway, fast forward, and again, I know I'm bouncing around. Alexi, my now 9-year-old, she was 8 at the time. She trained with me. We did 10-mile rucks, 12-mile rucks, 15-mile rucks, trying to beat her up a little bit to realize, baby girl, I love you, but this is not easy. She went to the qualifier. Qualifier consists of a minute twice of high knees, a minute twice of planking, a minute twice of jumping jacks, and then we ruck 15 miles.
Wow.
Dude,
that's hard.
She did that at 8 years old.
Most adults can't do that.
No, and
like the vast majority of adults.
Plenty that didn't meet the qualifier.
Yeah.
We had about over 200 that did qualify, or sorry, over 200 that signed up, 180 something qualified. Fast forward, Lexi, myself, and a bunch of other groups of people that we know, Kyle, Matt, some other people, Heather, Dan, her husband, Heather's husband, Dan, actually didn't ruck with us, but he was on the hospitality crew, which is more important than us rucking. We couldn't finish without those guys, so shout out to the hospitality crew. Anywho, fast forward a bit, and she did all the things, my 8-year-old daughter. So we get there in August, and we marched 22 miles. She had a little bit of hiccup about 34 miles in. It was 5:30 in the morning. Never pulled an all-nighter because she's 8 years old. Like, she should be sleeping at 7, 8 o'clock at night, you know?
Right.
5:30 in the morning the next day. She's been up for almost 24 hours at this point. Like, the medic was pushing her, you got to stop. Like, come to find out, and this is really where it gets emotional for me, a couple days later, I'm like, hey, well, you know, what was going through your head? The medic come by a couple times, and she wasn't talking. That was my concern. I was like, hey, she's not talking, and she's not talking to me. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Again, 34 miles, 5:30 in the morning at this point.
Yeah.
We leave the Capitol at 3 p.m. So do the math on that. 5:30 in the morning, we left the Capitol at 3 p.m. And she's not talking. So he finally pulled her off with me, and he's like, you can jump back in when we get to Gretna, which is one of our stops. So fast forward 2 days later, I'm asking her, like, you know, what was the deal? Like, you know, you weren't talking, but I kept on hearing like a noise. But we walk on Highway 6, and I'm bouncing around. So sorry. We have hats as part of the mandatory gear. I can't see her face, but I hear something. So she tells me 2 days later, Dad, the only thing that was keeping me awake is I was crying because I wanted to finish it. I didn't want to stop. I said I was going to do this. I made the commitment, and I wanted to finish, and I didn't want to stop. At 8 years old, what's the freaking level of commitment for the people that are listening to this podcast? You want to buy a house? Buy a freaking house. You want to invest? Invest. You want to do better for your family? Just freaking do it. Excuse my language, but she's 8 years old. She made a commitment. She did it. We had a small hiccup. She jumped back into Gretna. She finished it at 8 years old. What's your level of commitment? You want to listen to a podcast? Listen to all the episodes. This one's probably not the winner, right? Listen to all the other ones. Get the nuggets. Get all the stuff. Do the damn thing. You make the commitment. Just do it. She did it. You guys can do it. No excuses. This is America. It's the greatest nation in the world. We have all the advantages. We have all the tools. I don't have the information. Look at ChatGPT. Look at Google. You could figure it out. Just freaking do it, man. No excuses. Just freaking do it.
I should just end on that.
Mic drop, right?
I tell you what.
Sorry.
I had a moment. My at the time 10-year-old this year ran and did a half marathon.
It's badass, man.
And I was completely dumbfounded. He actually finished 8th out of, I don't even remember how, 600 people.
And how old is he?
At the time 10.
And he finished 8th.
Yeah.
How many adults were in there?
There was a lot of adults.
How many kids were in there?
So it was actually the younger kids that all finished in the because the first 13 were all under 16 years old.
Good for them.
And but the kids all finished up. Like my son Carson, shout out to him. He really I was so impressed. And it's kind of totally different, but in the same way, you know. And I was just shocked. And he's like, and I'm like, Carson, and I go, dude, you were walking a lot. He's like, well, my best friend did it with me, and I didn't want to leave him behind. And so he wanted to be able to talk with him and go him through it. And then he goes, in the last mile, I ran to finish strong, and he said I could run because he goes, because the kid just runs, and he
didn't want to leave. He
wasn't winded. Yeah,
but he didn't want to leave his. That's the takeaway. Is he didn't want to leave his friend behind.
He didn't want to leave his friend behind. Yeah, his best friend.
Your kid's going to end up in the military. You know that, right?
Well, I mean, he's all sports.
He doesn't have asthma.
He's all sports.
Just kidding.
So I the pride I had for that was immense. But hey, this is the longest podcast we probably had in the last year. So I definitely no, don't apologize. This is great content. Otherwise, we would have kind of pitched it earlier. But we do have a section we famously call Failing Forward. And this Failing Forward is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions. We have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE CLOSE or go online at jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
And in this section, it's a failure that you've had either in your personal life or business life that has had a learning lesson on it, something you would never take away. Do you have a example of something along those lines?
A failing moment. I mean, plenty, right? I'm human. Let me think of one. So earlier I said how I had an e-commerce company in California. Most people probably would look at that whole endeavor as a success. But at one point we essentially sold off, and that's when I moved to Omaha. So the takeaway there is I could have done better in the e-commerce company. At our peak, we did $4 million. Like it definitely wasn't a failure, but I look at it as like I didn't continue that endeavor, and because we had to sell off,
you didn't finish your goals.
No, I feel like that's a chapter that didn't actually get finished. But at the same time, had I not done all the things I wanted to do with that business, I wouldn't be in Omaha. Mm-hmm. And Omaha, I've really thrived. So that's the best thing could have ever happened, really.
It kind of reminds me of when I had a local website company called Omaha Nightlife. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, I put a decade of my life in that thing. You know, I probably could have made a lot more money doing other things, but those connections I made were the only reason I'm here today, because those connections led into getting into real estate and led into, me making other connections to get into the local REIA I own, and eventually leading to me, Owen, and you, and so on. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here right now with you guys. So I totally understand that.
The people that are like promote self-help and all the books and Instagram and crap, motivational people on Instagram or whatever else, they say, and to some degree I agree with it, is like, it's not a failure. That's where you got your education. Mm-hmm. So you learn from those shortcomings or that mistake, and that's got you where it is today. So that's the underlying win there.
Yeah, I agree. I hear it. Hey, before we get to the OT though, just because we never asked it in this whole hour and 48-minute podcast, what does your investment portfolio look like anyway?
It's a real estate podcast with a side of that's travel.
That's kind of what we are. We like to examine the deep mindset of somebody that's a real estate investor, And because if we just focused on your real estate, it'd just be the same podcast every day.
Sure.
Does that make
And
sense?
It's more transactional than relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, to touch on that is the first property I bought that was for purpose investment was a duplex in Midtown.
Midtown Omaha.
Midtown Omaha.
Yep.
Yeah, I converted that to an Airbnb back in 23, and that was struggle at first, but now it's doing really well. I'm glad we did.
What do you think was the change of success there? Like what made that Airbnb successful? Superhost.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I've been using a manager. I wouldn't have been able to get it going without him.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like when you do it personally, that there's a different level of communication and that you get, and I think that provides a better success for you.
You also have a greater understanding of what it takes for the daily.
Yes, I agree. And what else you got?
Long-term rentals, rent to own. I flipped some properties as well.
Okay. So yeah, and then what other multifamilies you've had in the past or currently have?
So the one multifamily I've ever purchased is that duplex. That I converted to an Airbnb.
Any future growth plans with your investment portfolio?
Oh yeah. So I bought 2 this year. I want to buy 5 next year.
Okay.
25, which airs on 1/1. So this year I'm going to buy 5.
I just did a Jason Ruiz coaching program today, and in there it was all about mindset, creating your dream boards, dreaming big, and I think they used the example of the coach I was speaking, he's like, hey, when I was driving with my kid for 13 hours, he kept on asking over and over, well, if you could do anything in the world today, if you could be the inventor of anything in the world today. And I just kept on saying, I'm not going to, I might sign my mind space. And then in the end, he goes, why am I not dreaming? My kid is dreaming, but I'm not dreaming. And I kind of hit home. And that one thing hit home. And the other thing that hit home, totally sidebar, and had nothing to do with today's conversation, was he goes, how many times as a parent do you tell your kid no? And I thought about that, and I'm like, well, I just took my daughter with me Christmas shopping, and I said no. And he's like, stop saying no and replace it with, it's like, hey, Dad, I want to watch TV. Great, yeah, you can watch TV, but get your homework done, go for a walk, and do this, and then you can watch TV. Or, oh, hey, Dad, I really want ice cream. Oh man, I want ice cream too. Let's go out for a 20-minute hike or a walk around the neighborhood. And then ice cream tastes so much better. He said, replace everything that says no. And I know that everybody has a different way to parent, but actually that really hit home to me. I'm like, he goes, if you only tell your kids no, you're telling them not to dream anymore.
And actually that translates not just to kids, but to your, like, say you have employees.
Yeah, he did transition that.
Yeah.
So I've heard it before, but it's just out of the whole thing today, he even asked you, he goes, in the end, what's the one thing that stuck with you? And I go, stop saying no.
Love it.
I think it's
Owen's never not gotten this long without talking. I'm just like, I've heard his voice for so long.
It's like seasons, right? I mean, you have long seasons and short seasons in your life and business and your family life and all of that. And if somebody packages a message a different way and delivers it to you, your reception of that message is going to be completely different than if I just told you in a different tone in a different way that didn't hit home. I don't know if I'm picking up what you're saying here, but
you're right on.
I think you received it because you were ready for it, whereas sometimes you're not ready for shit also. If you came to me on the wrong day at the wrong time and you just said, hey, dude, I noticed you do this and this, and have you ever thought about this? I'd completely shut you down. But if on another day I was just like, I need help, and I'm open, and you told me the same thing, or maybe you told it in a little bit of a different way, then I will receive it completely differently.
That goes back to earlier. You only have 18 summers with your kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Full flipping circle.
Yeah. I like it. Hey, I just had to get into that because we haven't talked about your investment portfolio, but also I had these things happen in my coaching thing, which we'll probably backtrack into an intro, but it just really meant a lot to me to think about that.
Sure.
And it kind of correlates because we've been really kid heavy in this podcast.
Sure.
So I love that. But in this last section is famously called the OT with Owen and Ted. Is it truly famous though, or do we just like saying famous?
No, it's famous.
Yeah, okay,
for
good.
Sure.
I mean, after years of podcasting, it probably is.
That one person on MySpace.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He
Tom.
loved it.
He was my bestie.
Tom instant messages us every week about the OT.
Oh, good stuff.
All right. So in this section, we cover the same questions with every guest with
Sometimes.
a little bit of flavor differentials in there. The first one we have for you, Gabe, is what's the title of your first book going to be called, or what topic is it going to cover?
I think my first book is going to be Fun with Owen and Ted. It's going to recap this endeavor and all the behind the scenes footage. There was a lot.
Yes, it'd be a picture book with movable arms and legs.
I love it.
On
I'm
Ted.
going to use ChatGPT after this to correlate that.
Detach his silk shirt that he's wearing here
This is not silk.
with his 4 chest hairs, and you can replace them in different spots of his body.
Like 3.5. But go ahead. What's the next question?
I think that you kind of bypassed that question. I think that you need to give us a true answer.
I don't know. And thank you for holding me accountable, because that was the easy way out and that was the easy answer. Someone had said that I should write a book about my experience with the 50 Mile March and Lexi, because it's
Because you're passionate.
It's and
that's where the best book and the best content comes, is passion. And I feel like you're getting almost teary eyed when you're talking about that.
I had the same conversation last week. Bree, who's the executive director for 50 Mile March, presented to a group that I'm in last week, and I when I say I was crying. You ever had the time in your life where tears just like shoot out of your eyeballs?
No.
Yes,
that was last week. So I'm glad that didn't happen today, but I was pretty close. So some people have said I should write a book about that. And to touch on that really quick again, we've recommitted to 25. She's going to march again.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
Sweet.
Nice.
Is this same route? Like, are you going?
I think it's going to be the same route. The qualifier is going to be a little bit more intense, and my youngest daughter has expressed interest as well. I think she's going to join on the hospitality crew instead of marching.
Cool.
Which is, again, it's more
That's
important.
Great. Yeah.
There's no way we could do without them. And I didn't touch on those, but they are angels.
Okay. So next question is, if you could interview anyone in the world today, it's your podcast. It could be any topic that you want. You can say across the table from anyone in the world today, it's alive. Mm-hmm. What's one question you want to ask, and who is it?
So that's a great question, because you've single-handedly inspired me to start a podcast.
No, you can use the studio if you want.
We're going to use the studio. It's going to be – so one thing we didn't talk about today was the Depreciating Assets, which is a car club that we not purposely started back in 2019, gave it a name, I think, in 21.
How do we not talk about that, by the way?
I don't know.
It's on my notes, but it just we went so long-winded.
I know. We touched on cars for just like a hot second. But anyway, Depreciating Assets is a car club, and it's actually really like a media company. It's its own beast of a thing. But we're going to start a podcast, and we're going to talk about anything and everything that's cars or automotive related, or really anything with an engine, because like that's what we love, is like just the effery of life and having fun and releasing and just having fun with going fast and making bad decisions.
What if it has an electric motor?
Ugh. I'm taking off the headphones. That's it. I'm out, guys.
Because I have an electric vehicle and I have I have my race vehicle, so I just want to know.
It's a Mustang. It doesn't count. What's the next question?
I mean, really though.
I just giving you crap, sir.
I mean,
listen,
I'm a Mustang guy, and I know I know you like the higher end vehicles.
It's not higher end. It's just like things that actually work. But go ahead. What's the next question? I'm having so much fun.
So who's the person you want to interview?
I probably would try to get Kyle on first, because I mean,
Kyle
Loftus, 1320, great dude. March next to us in the 50 Mile March, as well as Matt. And
actually had a job with Kyle at a local company called Stereo West, and we sang stereo systems back in the day. Great person, and then he started a worldwide phenomenon called 1320 Video, one of your really close friends, and become, I mean, one of the biggest YouTube channels in the world. Is that safe to say now?
They say that he's the biggest street racing media outlet in the country, arguably the world. I would say probably the world. I mean, he's got 3.5 million subscribers. I didn't realize when I moved to Omaha that was based out of Omaha. A mutual friend had introduced us. I didn't know who I didn't realize how big of a deal he was actually until like a couple months ago this year. I stumbled upon a YouTube video that his mom had shared about Kyle, and seeing some of the people that he like essentially helped bring up to be famous. And I'm like, holy crap, dude, you're a big deal. And I didn't know that. We rocked together training this year, and like he's a good dude. So him, I honestly, I'd want you on there. Like anybody that's involved in the automotive space, because it's good conversation. Like let's talk about cars and why they're freaking awesome, man.
I love cars.
Just leave the electric bullshit aside.
Just so you know, my one of my Mustangs was on his cover of his first DVD. Just a little shout out there.
Yeah, but no big. One I do want to underline this with my statement of, this is the greatest time in the history of the world to be alive, because you could literally have any interest in the entire planet, and there are a whole bunch of people out there. You weirdos somehow found each other through cars, and
We
it
did.
has to be.
It wasn't even cars.
It was Blake Martin.
Yep, Blake Martin.
And in my networking, one of my networking groups,
And-
he's like,
Wait a second, you guys don't know each other?
that was his exact response.
So you guys know all the same people. You're into all the same stuff. How do you not know each other? And then come to find out,
we did a cigar.
he's been to our events, and he's like, I didn't even realize that was your event. Like, I just went. And so, anyway, next question.
But the where I'm going with this is, it's so cool to be alive right now because your connectivity with other like-minded people has never been shorter. Like there's such a short runway to linking up with people that have
you like real estate? You like cars? Did we just become best friends?
I know, isn't it awesome?
It really is.
Facebook groups have played a role in
Yes,
that.
you're completely right. And there's other, like I'm a huge Reddit fanboy, and like that world is bananas because you can literally find anything in there. But I'm trying to drill that home to my like my two daughters don't really understand the struggle that we have had in the past with connecting on similar interests with people, and just how cumbersome it could have been. Now it's like the world is at their fingertips, and if they're like into,
you're a hashtag away from finding your homie.
Yes, exactly, and that is such
That's
a cool
That's
time.
a good tagline.
It's such a cool time to be alive.
You should make a shirt.
Yes, I will. We're making some fun shirts this year.
Yes, okay, that's your new podcast.
I like it. Hashtag away from finding your homie.
All right, so in the spirit of hashtags and homies, we're at your funeral, and it's pretty sad, but somebody is walking up there to deliver you to your big guy upstairs. What are they going to say about you, and who is it?
Don't cry.
No, I'm not going to cry. I'm just
You
thinking of all
can,
the
Ted.
things of life.
Jeez, no pressure.
So, I mean, I'm sure my wife would speak, and half of that would be true. My buddy Alex would probably speak, and all of those things are true. And gosh, have we had a good time in life.
You got some good stories to tell, doesn't he?
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
Fantastic. So earlier you asked about, like, I didn't have a drink for
9 months.
So long story short, went to Alabama. I've got family down there. There'll be a time where I migrate down there full time. So he came with to check out some stuff and like see growth opportunities and maybe come with. And he's like, I see the bartender's pouring a Captain and Coke. Dude, I haven't had one of those in years. He's like, yeah, whatever. So he has one. Next thing you know, she's pouring another one. And I'm like, you mother. So that was my first drink. He kind of shoved down my throat.
Okay.
Dude.
He was the temptress.
Yes. He's like, just have it. It's an asterisk. It's fine.
Yeah, it's an outlier.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
he's a maniac. I love him.
If you look at your life in whole, business or personal, what mentor or person in your life has had the biggest impact on you? And let's give him a shout out.
So when I worked, Alex, who's a good friend of mine back in New York, he and I worked together along with his brother Peter. They both were very much instrumental in my professional growth. So was our mutual boss at the time. I reported directly to him when I came here to Nebraska. My real estate portfolio grew thanks to a gentleman who I met here. Asked him a lot of questions, and at first he just thought I was being nosy. And then I told him at one point, I was like, hey, my dad had once said, a wise man learns from his mistakes, a wiser learns from others. And that was the best thing I could have shared with him, because then the floodgates opened. He told me all the crazy stuff he did in real estate, and my real estate portfolio has grown because of my interaction with him.
Can we shout that person out?
His name is Kess, and my old boss was Atul's guy.
Nice. Shout those guys. They're good stories.
Alex and Peter.
Well, I have one last question.
Actually, I have a question after that. Remember?
Guess not.
Oh, number
Staged
6
again.
Yeah.
That's such a
Weird.
diva. Gabe, are you looking for anything in your business or personal life right now where somebody catching this episode might be able to connect you, with a person? Like, are you hiring? Are you looking for deals? What's your jam lately?
I mean, I'm always looking for deals. I am. I'm always looking for deals. But really what I enjoy doing is talking to people that have questions about any of the things we talked about tonight, whether it's 50 Mile March, whether it's investing, whether it's starting a business. Like, that's where I really thrive, and I enjoy the conversations. Like the conversations Ted and I have had over cigars, I can't get enough of those, because it's like-minded people, regardless of whether. And it's not just Ted. Don't think I'm like trying to blow up his head. It's conversations like the conversations I have with
Got
Ted.
it.
I'm not saying
Message received.
I'm not saying just Ted, right? And even our coffee. Like, I love being in that space, and like you helped me. You probably didn't realize you did because we're talking about the same type of stuff that we have interest in. He helped me. And I would like to think I've also helped you guys in some degree. So those are the conversations I love. Scared about real estate, not sure about real estate, business, whatever those things are, hit me up, man. I'm not hard to find. Let's grab a coffee, grab a drink, grab a lunch, whatever. Those are the conversations I love.
Love it, man.
So speaking of conversations, if you could recommend one person for this podcast that has some real estate investing, and you kind of see how we do things here, who's the one person that you'd want to throw a shout out to come on next?
You know, my buddy Eric, I mentioned him earlier. He was the guy I mentioned when we were having lunch, and he's like, "Oh wait, you could fix that." He'd be good to have on here. He's a remodeler. He invests. He flips. I think he'd be good. I indicated earlier Blake would be good too, but he's not in the real estate space.
Yeah, shout out to Eric on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're listening to the first time or the 172nd time, we love it if you give us a review on your favorite format. And I'm gonna skip ahead a couple reviews because I have some special ones here. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So first one is best podcast on real estate 5-star review. One of our 126 5-star reviews that we have on Apple.
Is this your mom?
No, it is not.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
His sister.
You know what? I've told my mom not to put it in a review yet because I'm saving her for like our 200th or like a big milestone.
Yeah, yep, save her.
All right.
Listen to it every day. I can always keep me interested in real estate and new ideas about real estate. That's from C. Our Son. And the other one is Ted is the best host. It is such a good.
Hang on a minute.
It's such a good real estate video.
No,
I love. P.S. Skylar from SK Rocks. My kids discovered podcasts on their iPads.
I love it. Shout out to your kids. Shout out to your kids.
And so
Bear, have some kids.
So Skylar is SK Rocks. Carson, C. Our Son. Carson.
Got it. Well played, Carson.
Okay.
Skylar.
Okay, so shout out to you guys, but I'll give you another one more review from the Colton Plaque. These podcasts are phenomenal. Ted and Owen have interviewed some of the biggest investors nationwide, providing value to all who listen, no matter where you are or where you may be in your real estate journey. So thank you to Colton for that awesome review, and my kids, #kids. I love you guys. I thought it'd be good to read those since we've been talking so much about kids today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of Aiden Bear, Rhea Radio, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Gabe P.F. Chang's as my North Star. Ruiz signing off.
This episode is also brought to you by PropStream and Magic Door.